I never imagined my sister's wedding day would become my own nightmare. Victoria had everything: beauty, charm, and a billionaire waiting at the altar. Alexander Pierce, CEO, billionaire, and the perfect groom for our family's merger. But 30 minutes before the ceremony, Victoria's phone buzzed with a message. Her face went pale as she read words that would shatter everything. I watched her grab her suitcase and head toward the window. "Victoria, what are you doing? 300 guests are waiting downstairs." She turned to me with tears and said something that destroyed me.
"I'm in love with someone else. I'm leaving. Tell them yourself."
Before I could stop her, she climbed out the service exit. I stood there, frozen, holding her veil, my mind racing desperately. My father burst through the door, face red with rage and panic.
"Where is Victoria? The Pierce family is threatening to cancel everything. The merger, our company, everything we built, it all collapses today."
My mother appeared behind him, already crying, makeup streaming down her face.
300 people, the media, the board members, they're all waiting downstairs.
I looked at the wedding dress, then at my parents' desperate faces. In that moment, I made a decision that would change my life. I'll do it. I'll wear the dress. I'll marry him. My mother gasped, but my father was already calculating the possibilities.
"No one can know. You'll wear the veil. Keep your head down."
20 minutes later, I stood in my sister's wedding dress, trembling. The dress was too loose, the veil too heavy. Everything felt wrong. My father gripped my arm tightly and whispered his final warning harshly.
"Don't speak unless necessary. Don't ruin this for the family, Emma."
The cathedral doors opened, and 300 faces turned toward me. Instantly, through the veil, I could see him waiting at the altar. Alexander Pierce stood like a statue, cold and impossibly handsome in darkness. Every step down that aisle felt like walking toward my own execution. The music played, but all I heard was my heartbeat pounding. When I reached the altar, Alexander's eyes were ice-cold steel. He didn't smile, didn't soften, just stared with suspicion and contempt. The priest began the ceremony with words that felt like a trap.
"Do you, Alexander Pierce, take this woman as your lawfully wedded wife?"
His pause lasted forever before he answered with a voice like ice.
"I do."
2 words that sealed both our fates completely. Forever. Then all eyes turned to me. Behind the veil, I hid. My voice cracked as I whispered the lie that condemned me. "I do." The words felt like betrayal on my own tongue.
"You may now kiss the bride."
The priest announced to silence. Alexander's hand reached for the veil, his jaw tight with anger. He lifted the fabric, and our eyes met for the first time. Shock flashed across his face, then immediately turned to dark fury.
"You."
He whispered with venom that made my blood freeze cold completely. Before I could explain anything, his mouth crashed against mine violently. It wasn't romantic. It was punishment, anger, and humiliation combined completely. The guests erupted in applause, completely unaware of my silent nightmare. Alexander pulled away and gripped my wrist like a steel trap. He leaned close and whispered words that shattered my heart instantly.
"I don't know what game you're playing, but you regret this."
We walked down the aisle as husband and wife to cheers. But his grip on my arm was so tight, I lost feeling. Outside the cathedral, a black Rolls-Royce waited in the rain. He shoved me into the car without a word or explanation. The door slammed shut, trapping me in silence with my enemy. Alexander sat rigid, staring out the window, his jaw working furiously. Rain streaked down the windows like the tears I couldn't cry.
"Where is she?"
His voice cut through the silence like glass. I opened my mouth to speak, but fear closed my throat. His hand slammed against the seat.
I asked you a question.
She ran away with another man. She left this morning early. His laugh was cold, bitter, completely devoid of any humor whatsoever.
And they sent you instead. The inferior replacement. The consolation prize.
Each word was a dagger, stabbing deeper than I thought possible. I didn't want this. I tried to stop her from leaving. She turned to face me with eyes that burned through me.
Don't lie to me. You've been planning this from the beginning.
I was forced. My parents, the company. I had no choice today.
Neither did I. But here we are, bound by a lie.
The car stopped in front of a towering glass penthouse building. Alexander exited without opening my door or looking back at all. I sat alone in the cold car, still wearing her dress. The driver cleared his throat, waiting for me to move finally. I gathered the heavy dress and stepped into the rain alone. Rain soaked through the lace immediately, clinging to my trembling skin. The lobby was all marble, gold, and cold modern luxury everywhere. Alexander stood by the private elevator, arms crossed, face like stone. He walked across the lobby, leaving wet footprints behind me clearly. The elevator doors opened, revealing a space barely big enough to gather. We stepped inside, and suddenly the air became suffocatingly thick immediately. 40 floors in silence, except for my heart pounding against ribs. I could feel his anger radiating off him in waves. The penthouse doors opened to a home that felt like prison.
Your room is down the hall. Stay away from mine. Clearly?
He walked away without another word, leaving me standing soaked. I found my assigned room, cold, spare, and clearly not wanted here. I peeled off the wet dress and collapsed on the bed. My phone buzzed. It was my father's final instruction to obey.
Make him believe it. Play the role. Save this family now.
I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling above. How did I go from invisible daughter to unwanted wife overnight? In the distance, I heard his door slam with finality. I pulled the thin blanket over my shoulders and let exhaustion win. Tomorrow, I'd face him again. Tonight, I let myself break completely. Silent tears fell until sleep finally took mercy on me tonight. In my dreams, I was still running, but couldn't escape. Morning came too soon, with light that felt like interrogation. I heard movement in the kitchen. He was already awake, early. I forced myself to get up and face the first day. I had no clothes except the wedding dress from yesterday. I found a white robe hanging behind the door, clearly new. I wrapped it around myself and stepped into the hallway. The penthouse looked different in daylight, even more cold and empty. Alexander stood by the window. Soup perfect, coffee in hand. He didn't turn around when I entered, didn't acknowledge me existing. "Good morning," I whispered, voice breaking the silence like glass shattering. He took a long sip of coffee, making me wait. Finally, he spoke without turning to look at me directly.
The staff will bring you clothes. Stay out of my way.
He set down his mug and walked past me like air. The door slammed behind him, leaving me standing alone again. An hour later, a woman arrived with designer boxes and bags.
Mr. Pierce arranged for a wardrobe. Please try these on.
Everything fit perfectly. He'd guessed my size without asking once. I dressed in a simple black dress, trying to feel normal, but nothing felt normal about this beautiful, terrible prison I'm in. Days passed in a rhythm of silence and careful avoidance completely. He left before dawn, returned after midnight, avoiding me entirely. I spent my days walking the empty penthouse like a ghost. 1 week became 2, and I realized This was my life now.
He said I do to the wrong woman, and she paid for it immediately. Would you marry a man who thinks you ruined his life? Subscribe if you think no woman should marry a man like this. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I truly appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to support my small channel. I hope to bring you even better short dramas in the future.